Welcome to the reveal of my next diorama in 1/44th scale. As you can probably hear from my voice, I'm not feeling particularly well at the moment. Nevertheless, I wanted to release this video due to the positive feedback on my video about the Bachem Natter from brengun. In that particular video, I already showed you how I built and painted these tiny interceptors. This whole process was quite demanding simply because of the dimensions of these tiny aircraft. To make things even more exciting, I added some damage to one of the Natters. All the details can be found in my dedicated build review video on my channel. I was quite satisfied with the outcome of the camo schemes and thought the Natter would fit perfectly into a small diorama. I already did that with the Horten 229 and Heinkel 162 in my auto-fuel diorama. A detailed video about this 1/44th scale diorama can also be found on my channel. As you can see, I wasn't sure about the composition of my forthcoming diorama at first. Additionally to the two Natter aircraft, I also had two Messerschmitt 163 Comet, some remnants from my other diorama, some German infantrymen, and a die-cast tank that I wanted to place somewhere. The setting of the diorama was quite clear. The remnants of a German infantry platoon defending one of the last strongholds somewhere in Germany or Austria, and a tank joining the battle against incoming Allied forces. Most likely such a scenario never occurred in real life, and therefore my diorama isn't historically accurate. And I don't claim that it is. The camo schemes of the aircraft are based on references I found in my books, but those are also fictional. Moreover, I received input from tank experts who pointed out that this particular Tiger tank variant had become outdated by the end of World War II, making its use in that time period improbable. So to be perfectly clear right away, I don't claim that this diorama is realistic in any way. In any case, I got this die-cast model for a good price and the scale matches with that of the Natter. All I had to do was give it a proper paint job. Consequently, I initiated the process by applying a black primer to the tank. I also wanted to try some chipping, so I airbrushed it in metallic colors next. Subsequently, I applied a layer of worn effects to the model. I started with RLM 79 Sand Yellow because I don't have Dunkelgelb. Then I used Patafix poster tag sausages to mask off the camo. I say it in most of my videos, and I'll say it again, that Patafix is a great product for scale modeling. It's easy to use, versatile, and you can remove it without peeling off any paint. When I was satisfied with the masking, I used Revell's olive green as a secondary color. The removal of Patafix does require some time, as you can observe, but the final outcome proved rather satisfactory. To commence the chipping process, I carefully applied water to the tank, reactivating the chipping medium. Then, employing a toothpick and various other tools, I painstakingly eliminated layers of paint. In the end, the underlying metallic paint should be visible where you would expect some scratches and weathering. It's quite easy to overdo this effect, especially in such a small scale. However, I'm a fan of heavy weathering, so I was quite satisfied with this experiment. As a next step, I painted all the tools and smaller details on the tank. Then I used a heavy wash all over the tank to accentuate all the recesses and give it a weathered appearance. Then a fellow tank modeler gave me the advice that if a Tiger were to have been employed in the later stages of the war, it would likely have featured a three-tone camouflage scheme. Therefore I went back and added brown paint to the camo scheme. Later I used the tarp to conceal the Pfeifel air filters, because from what I've heard from other modelers, these filters were likely omitted in the later versions of the Tiger tank. At this stage I had a rough idea about the layout of the diorama. What I still needed was some foliage. I only had one proper tree that also needed modifications because it didn't look realistic. As you can see, I cut off many branches to make it look more natural. Obviously a single tree doesn't make a realistic forest, so I tried different methods to craft my own. The best method was to use balsa wood for the trunks, copper wire for the branches, and some flocking or scatter material for the needles. First I cut the balsa wood into small chunks. Then I used my hobby knife to refine the hard edges and make it somewhat round. I also tried using toothpicks for some trees, but they also came with certain disadvantages. For the individual branches I used the standard wire that I cut into varying lengths. I inserted the longer wire branches from the base of the balsa trunk and gradually worked my way upwards. This process was very time consuming and I wasn't even sure if it would look any good in the end. Furthermore, these homemade trees were extremely fragile. I did some experiments with alternative methods, but this one seemed to be promising despite its challenges. Once I had crafted trees of varying sizes using this technique, I employed a spray-on adhesive and forest floor scatter material to simulate the foliage on the branches. This process was quite messy and I tried to collect some of the scatter material to be used later. However, the result seemed quite convincing to me. For the base I used a picture frame and glued some styrofoam into it. To seal everything and create some ground texture, this structural paste was used. In my opinion, this paste was just as good as the more expensive stuff you get from modeling companies. While the paste was still drying, I used the die-cast tank to imprint tank tracks into the ground. After a black base coat I used various green paints to airbrush the soil. Then I also used different colors for dry brushing. Also, I finally got myself a static grass applicator. I wasn't so sure about its function at first, but as you can hopefully see here, the grass now indeed stands upright. After the grass had been applied across the entire base, I carried out a final adjustment of the layout. Then I glued some grass tufts in a variety of colors onto the base. You can easily create these yourself, but I had already bought a lot of them. These tufts were out of scale unfortunately, so I came back later and trimmed them a bit. To secure the trees to the base, I pushed holes into the soil and used super glue to fix them. Then I also came across some winter landscape tufts, and considering my assortment of snow replicating materials, I decided to change my plan a bit. I tested all of these products to find the most authentic option. This snow powder from Bush was quite easy to use, but it seems like it's just some kind of plaster and it had a greyish hue. Therefore I mixed in some white acrylic paint. When the color and consistency were on point, I started spreading it on the ground of the base. Additionally, I applied this mixture to the branches, aiming to create the illusion of freshly fallen snow from the past few days. In the end this looked quite good, but I wanted to achieve more realism. For that I used these cheap snowflakes. Again I sprayed on a bit of the spray glue and then just let the snowflakes fall on the base. Of course the trees were also covered and the excess removed again. I think it's always a good idea to combine different products to get a realistic result. Now I was finally able to place the aircraft, tank and a few leftovers from my last diorama. As you might have seen in the video about my auto-fuel diorama, I had scratch built a range of accessories like barrels, pallets and wooden boards. To make the diorama more lively, I got myself these 1/44th scale soldiers. They are pre-painted, so I just had to glue them to the base. The idea behind this diorama is that these few remaining soldiers are defending a military installation or critical infrastructure from incoming Allied forces. The Natter was designed to launch vertically from a launch tower. Since it did not need any airfields to launch, it could have been positioned next to critical factories and other infrastructure. The Natter program wasn't successful though, with only a single reported manned flight, which was a failure. Anyways, after placing all the infantrymen, I used white pigments to blend in the trestles, aircraft and other stuff into the winter landscape. Another great product I used extensively here were the ice sparkles from AK Interactive. I don't know what these tiny balls are, but they are really useful to recreate thin layers of snow and ice. I used a bit of white glue to fix them in place. A lot of fine-tuning was done off camera because it was just too complicated to handle these tiny parts while keeping the camera in focus. Anyways, here is my finished The Last Stand diorama. It took me about 2 years on and off to get this result, also because I was working on other projects simultaneously. This is my second diorama in 1/44th scale after the Out of Fuel diorama I finished last year. As I said, you can find a detailed video about that on my channel. In my opinion, these small dioramas are a perfect way to show my fascination for these late war projects. I already showed you my 1/44th scale Messerschmitt 163 comets, so rest assured there will be one final diorama in this scale. However, my hands are already becoming shaky, making it increasingly challenging to work in this scale, so it will be my last one. Anyways, I hope you like my diorama. A lot of work and passion went into realizing this project, and hopefully it shows. If you liked this video, please do all the things to push the YouTube algorithm and maybe support my channel via the links in the description. That's all for this video, I hope you liked it, thanks for watching and bye.